Welcome in on a Tuesday, everybody. I'm Reed Cowan. Okay, so our CBS News team's live from Chicago for day 2 of the Democratic National Convention. A former president taking the stage tonight. Plus, uncertainty over the future of ceasefire talks in the Middle East. So far, Hamas is yet to sign off on a peace deal. Will a White House proposal get to the finish line? You're watching CBS News 24/7. Let's go. Okay, right up the top from our video monitors out of the state of Wisconsin, Republican candidate J.D. Vance is talking crime and public safety at the Kenosha County Courthouse. That's about 40 miles outside of Milwaukee, taking to the podium. We have teams there. We'll have much analysis throughout this broadcast in just a few minutes. We'll turn that sound around and you'll be able to hear what he had to say. Meanwhile, in the state of Michigan, former President Donald Trump will talk to voters in the town of Howell. That is just west of Detroit. You can see right there the Trump logo and the Trump plane there on the tarmac. By the way, that city of Howell, the scene of white supremacist demonstrations last month. So we're watching that one closely. While at the same time, our teams have cameras trained on Chicago for day 2 of the DNC. Tonight's theme, a bold vision for America's future. CBS News political director Finn Gomez is live from Chicago. And Finn, the question right now, Democrats continue differentiating in unique ways. So Republicans at their convention, they saw no former presidents backing up their candidate from the stage. But Democrats tonight have former President Barack Obama. Some strategy there revealed.
Yeah, absolutely. Barack Obama, the former president, but also the former his wife and former First Lady Michelle Obama will also be speaking here tonight. There's been a lot of palpable excitement speaking to delegates here about that. If you just to remind you, of course, Reed, Chicago was the city that really gave birth to the Obama campaign back in 2008. I've also been told by some top Democrats here there is an expectation that speech that President Obama gave back in 2016, sort of handing the baton or the torch to Hillary Clinton, the nominee in that cycle. Well, there will be a sort of a very similar sort of tenor when you hear from the former president tonight when he passes that baton essentially over to Vice President Kamala Harris. There's a historical significance to it, of course, that potential for the first woman of color to be president in 77 days here, Reed. So there's been a lot of talk about that here in Chicago from Democratic delegates. Also, who are we hearing from tonight, Reed, are Republicans. Republicans in support of Harris. Notable, Stephanie Grisham, the former White House press secretary under Donald Trump. She will be speaking tonight and giving her support to Harris. We have been told, we have confirmed, CBS has confirmed. Also, Adam Kinzinger, the former Republican congressman and vocal critic of Donald Trump, but also the Georgia lieutenant governor, if you recall, Jeff Duncan, who's been very vocal about his criticism towards Donald Trump as well. So there is that. With that, having those and have such a prominent place in tonight's events shows that the Harris campaign and Democrats are trying to appeal to that moderate Republican in battleground states like Georgia and other places as well. Reed.
And I want to ask you about this, Finn. So the Harris-Walz team leaving that Chicago area for a rally in Wisconsin. Have we seen this before? And what's the significance of Wisconsin, the reason to leave and go do that today?
Because it's Wisconsin. It's a battleground state. It's so crucial to both of these campaigns to win that. That is one of those states, a pivot state, really, Reed, that has gone back and forth from Republican to Democratic columns in the past few cycles. It's only about an hour and a half away, and because you have Walz, obviously from the Midwest, the governor of Minnesota, this is really a significant deal for them to show how prominent that state is to their strategy and their focus, which is 77 days out. Also notable, as you mentioned, former President Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance are also hitting some key battleground states in those blue wall states, those that are so crucial. Those out of those 7 battleground states, they're also, as you mentioned, going to be in Michigan, and so I think that it just showcased the significance of those Rust Belt states to both campaigns.
It's like watching football, only politics. Strategy right there on the field. The field is the map of the United States.
Let's
Finn,
go.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So
Thank
that's
you,
the
Reed.
situation inside Convention Hall, but outside, There's a much different tone to talk about. Protesters breached a security fence. You see it right there, as police say they arrested at least 4 yesterday. Listen.
It was a brief breach. There were demonstrated tactics applied to remove some of the locks from the outer perimeter fence and the fencing. Our officers arrived on the scene. We were in immediate contact with our federal partners about it. Some of them breached into the fence, the adjacent fence. They attempted to pull that fencing down. We got in there as quickly as we could. Our officers showed great restraint. The leadership team being out there, making sure that the officers are remembering their training and relying on their training to get this done. Our officers at some point were sprayed with OC spray. We had objects thrown at officers, water bottles, water thrown on officers. No major injuries, but our officers did not overreact. We were able to clear that area up really quickly. Shortly thereafter, having a conversation with the Secret Service, that location was then fortified to make sure that that didn't happen again.
All right, so that is the situation that was, but let's talk about what the situation is and what it could be. CBS News correspondent Roxana Saberi is in Chicago. Roxana, you are where those protesters breached that barricade yesterday. In fact, we see one of the security fences there behind you. What do we expect today by way of protests?
Yeah, Reed, I'm just a couple of blocks north of the United Center where delegates are meeting in the evenings here at the DNC. The protesters who breached this barricade breached it right around here. They branched off from the Maine march yesterday. Some of them pried open this barricade, and they were trying to get closer to the United Center. And if John, our cameraman, pans over, you might be able to see there are 3 sets of fences here now. The inner one, the far one, was there. They did not reach the far one because riot police pushed them out before they got there. This center one, this middle one, was just put in last night, and today we've seen some crews fortifying it. And then this one, this inner or this outer barricade has been set up again as it was. Some of the protesters were holding pro-Palestinian signs. Some chanted slogans such as "Shame, shame." Our crew who was out here yesterday saw some of them throwing water bottles and signs at police. But as I mentioned, the police pushed them out. Superintendent of Chicago Police Larry Snelling, whom you just heard from earlier, said there were 13 arrests made on charges including criminal trespassing and aggravated battery. But he pointed out that most of the protesters yesterday were peaceful. He said there were about 3,500 in the march that was called the Coalition to March on the DNC, and we saw the same thing. There were families out with strollers. People from across the country told us they came to protest the war in Gaza and call for an end to U.S. aid in Israel. You can hear a speaker here at a park where we're just standing next to. They're talking about protecting the environment. So there are speakers here today. There's also an unauthorized pro-Palestinian protest at the Israeli consulate set for this evening here in Chicago, as well as a pro-Israeli art exhibit highlighting the hostages still held by Hamas. Reed?
Roxana Saberi, thank you so much for that live report. Okay, so let's talk about the work of getting those hostages released and a potential ceasefire agreement. Let's talk about what's going on overseas. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will arrive in Doha. He's still pushing for that ceasefire agreement that was drafted by the United States in Israel's war with Hamas. So we want to ask some questions about that. BBC News correspondent Weira Davies joins us now live from Jerusalem. Israel is signed off. So far, reports out of the Middle East, Hamas is yet to sign off. What's the sticking point there, Weira?
Yeah, hi, Reid. Well, there are several sticking points. I mean, Israel appears to have been persuaded by the US to go forward with the next stage, which will be perhaps peace talks in Cairo at the end of the week. But Hamas has already accused Israel of moving the goalposts, of changing its demands in the event of a ceasefire. There are several key things that Hamas objects to. That's the where Israeli military soldiers will remain in Gaza if there's to be a ceasefire agreement. What would be the access for Palestinians to move unfettered back to their homes or home areas in northern Gaza, and which Palestinian prisoners would be exchanged in for those Israeli hostages. So some still big sticking points. Anthony Blinken, he's put a lot of effort into these talks because, of course, it matters, as we've been hearing, to the US domestic audience as well, with elections coming up in the States. But Blinken's been in Cairo. He's now about to land in Doha. But the feeling on the ground is there's still so much distance between Israel and Hamas that the chances of a peace deal are still very much in the negative, and peace talks really aren't anticipated. Even if they do start in Cairo, they're not anticipated to achieve much.
Wira, you mentioned Hamas talking about the fate of Palestinian hostages. Yesterday, Israeli authorities say that they recovered the bodies of 6 Israeli hostages. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, look, the human toll in this conflict, that's been going on for almost 11 months is deep on both sides. And the Israelis had sent a special force of soldiers into Gaza, deep into Gaza. They'd got intelligence that there were 5 Israeli bodies, people they'd known had already died, but they came across a 6th body as well. So overnight, Israeli special forces retrieved these bodies of 6 men from 2 kibbutzes alongside the Gaza border who'd been abducted on the 7th of October. This was a reminder to Israeli society of the cost, the price they've paid, and it's even more pressure, I think, on the Israeli government, on Benjamin Netanyahu, to strike a deal, because there's nothing that matters as much to Israeli society as getting those hostages back. But we've also had more deaths in Gaza on the Palestinian side. Israel has acknowledged that in the last 24 hours it targeted a school in Gaza where there were about 700 displaced people sheltering. But Israel said that Hamas was also using that school as an operations base, and that was their target. But we've had reports from Gaza that several people, at least 12 people, were killed in that airstrike, one of several airstrikes against Hamas positions in Gaza, but that have also claimed, according to the authorities in Gaza, have also claimed a large number of civilian lives as well.
The BBC's Wira Davies live with us on the stream. Thank you, Wira. We appreciate you. Hey, when we come back, a report from the conflict region between Ukraine and Russia and why Ukraine's president claims wins and prisoners in Russian territory. All right, when we see it, you see it. In breaking news out of the state of Georgia, a deputy shot and rushed to this hospital that you're about to see in live images. This is where our live cameras are right now. So here's the backstory. That deputy took that bullet while executing a search warrant at a home in Carroll County, just west of Atlanta. These are the live pictures. This happened this morning. The gunman dead, the deputy inside the walls of Grady Medical Center fighting for life at this very moment. Critical condition. Again, breaking news, a deputy shot in Georgia. We're going to keep you updated as soon as we hear more. Let's widen our focus now to international issues. Earlier this month, Ukraine stunned Russians with a surprise incursion. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee reports Russians took over that territory, and then Ukrainians took it back. It's about the size of the city of Los Angeles.
Hi, Reed. Ukraine currently is a tale of 2 wars. One plays to Ukraine's strengths and the other the Russians. For the past 2 weeks, we've seen Kyiv exploit its stunning success in Russia's Kursk region. Last night, President Volodymyr Zelensky boasted that his forces have taken nearly 500 square miles. They've captured dozens of towns and villages. The Kremlin says more than 120,000 residents have been evacuated. Ukrainian forces are able to use speed, aggression, and maneuverability to rapidly gain ground. Zelensky says his goal is to create a buffer zone, but he sees a problem. Currently, Western countries prohibit certain advanced weapons from being used on Russian territory. The president has asked them to be removed because they're restraining him. Ukrainian officials believe they could make even larger gains if the gloves were off. So that's one side. But on the other, you have a war in the east that's going poorly for the Ukrainians. This plays to Moscow's strengths, where there is the use of attrition to grind down Ukrainian defenses. Moscow has the manpower, weapons, and ammunition to throw wave after wave at Ukraine's defenses and is slowly taking ground, but at a very high cost. The vital city of Pokrovsk, which sits on a rail junction, is under threat of being taken over. Ukrainian officials are ordering residents to leave. There are reports that Ukrainian forces are tired and stretched thin, and that's why this operation into Russia has been important. button. Not only is it taking ground potentially to be used in a land swap later down the line, but it also has the potential to draw Russian soldiers away from the east, and it's also giving a big boost to morale. Reed?
Ian, thank you for that new information about threats to our democracy. It is confirmed right now Iran is trying to influence the 2024 presidential election. U.S. officials sounding the alarm. Iran is behind the hack of former President Donald Trump's campaign and is also targeting the Harris-Walz campaign. Iran denies this, as campaigns have both been told to be on guard. More problems for independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is in a courtroom today fighting to keep his name on the ballot in Pennsylvania. So here's what we know right now. Democratic challengers want Kennedy off that ballot. They say he used the wrong address on his candidacy paperwork. Meanwhile, Kennedy's campaign has dismissed this legal challenge as frivolous. Jumping the map to Italy. Our video monitors watching this. It's an intense search to find 6 missing after a luxury yacht sank in a possible tornado situation. Among the missing, 2 Americans. And an update. A captain on the waters during the storm in another boat pulled some survivors onto a life raft. That captain also says he watched the storm flip that yacht on its side, sending it sinking in just 2 minutes.
The weather report was west, northwest, and thunderstorms. And thunderstorms can turn out good or bad. And this one was a real violent squall.
Total of 22 people on board among the missing. British software giant Mike Lynch, once described as Britain's Bill Gates. Let's come home to the United States and look at this video to our monitors out of New York. Catastrophic flooding causing a road to collapse. This is on Long Island's North Shore. Look at the force of that water weighing down just little by inches and then taking out the pavement, just making easy use of that. Zoe, you're watching the weather in that part of our country as well.
Yes, but luckily things are a lot quieter up there, and it's going to be quiet for about 90% of the country as we step out today. Great news for any outdoor plans anybody may have, but if you live in Texas, that's not necessarily the case. Texas is seeing a majority of all of the action when it comes to the heat. There are 2 main kind of bullseyes over Texas. There's one over Dallas and one down near Austin, where those temperatures are going to be extremely hot. Luckily, the humidity isn't anything crazy, which, you know, in Texas, that's kind of hard to do. It's still going to make the temperatures feel a couple of degrees cooler than the 102 in Dallas, the 101 in Houston, likely going to be up to near 106, 107 in Austin. That could potentially break their record heat. We're also going to be noticing an area of heat down near Phoenix, and they're going to be seeing 112 degree high temperatures today. Tomorrow, though, they're looking at some rain on the way, and they might see a little bit of that rain today, but it's the heat that's really going to be the biggest issue. I'll break down the rain in just a little bit, but let's take a look at that heat first, because the heat all across the southwestern United States is the biggest issue, and centered over near Texas, along with places over near Arizona and Phoenix. But you notice by tomorrow, Phoenix, Arizona, it's a lot cooler because those monsoon storms are going to really help cool us down, while Texas is again going to be dealing with the heat today, tomorrow, and even into Thursday. There will likely be a bit of a cool down by Friday, but Thursday again is going to be that day to look out for. Get ready for a quieter weekend of weather down near Texas ahead of us, but either way, heat safety is going to be top priority over the next couple of days. And read the heat definitely going to be on over near Texas, but for most of the rest of the country, we can actually have quiet conditions, so kind of a give and take with the forecast.
All right, well, we will take that. Thank you, Zoe. Hey, when we come back, we'll take you live to Michigan and a hot button town for Donald Trump's campaign. All right, we wanted to show you this video right now to our monitors. Just moments ago, former President Donald Trump arrived in Michigan for a campaign event. Tonight, there he is, stepping off of that plane. CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi is live on the stream from Howell, Michigan. Olivia, Howell as a town has really been a hot-button place on the map for the United States. Why would former President Trump choose to go there?
Well, you know, this is a deep red area in Michigan, and it's in the suburbs of Detroit. So this is an area where Donald Trump won handedly in 2016 and 2020. But it is important to note that this area does have some history and some ties to white supremacy. Back in the 1970s, there was some really deep ties to white supremacy here. And just last month, we saw some white supremacists marching in Howell, Michigan, with some signs that said Heil Hitler, other things of that nature of white supremacy. So it's notable that that has happened in the past here. Now, this Sheriff Murphy here in Howell, which is where Trump will be holding this event today, it's in Livingston County. He said that there may be some people coming here to trying to stir up issues. He said they're not welcome here and they are not from here and they disavow it. But it is important to note that that's kind of the backdrop of coming here today. Now, this is an event where Donald Trump is going to be talking about crime and safety. This is part of his tour that he's doing for counter programming to the Democratic National Convention that is happening in Chicago. So this is day 2 of that tour. He then will be going on to North Carolina tomorrow, and then after that, he'll be headed to Arizona on a border trip.
Olivia, I want to ask you more about the places, the specific places he's choosing on the map and the places he's going as he travels. He went to smaller Asheville, North Carolina, where we talked to you, last week when he was there. When Kamala Harris chose to go to a larger city in the Carolinas. Is there a reason why he's going to these particular areas? Maybe taking a focus on specific and key counties?
Certainly so. Definitely a key focus on smaller areas, places where they feel they have a good bit of support. This is part of the playbook we've kind of heard from Trump campaign officials, is that they'd like to run up the score in deeper red areas, turn out the people that perhaps are closer to them ideologically, but perhaps don't vote all the time. Some younger white men is a target group for them. Those are types of people who maybe don't listen to traditional media, but listen to streamers. That's why you hear Trump doing interviews with Elon Musk and other streamers on X. But that's kind of the goal there. You know, Asheville is not necessarily representative of that, but Howell, Michigan is somewhere that certainly is, you know, a suburb outside of Michigan, outside of Detroit, that is a key area that they need to win. So later tomorrow, he'll be heading to Asheboro, North Carolina. It's another Ash, but it's near Raleigh. And then later this week, he'll be headed to the border. And then we're also hearing of an event in Las Vegas where he'll be talking about taxes on tips and his recent proposals on that. So very targeted trips that he is making this week, trying to shore up support as we come out of the Democratic National Convention and turn towards November.
CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much. We look forward to your reports in the coming days. Okay, our video monitors open up with this crazy weather in Colorado. Looks downright drizzly right there among the evergreens, but look closer and you'll see that's hail hitting hard. More wet weather is expected in that area today. Zoe, hail in the summertime.
Yeah, that's actually when hail is normally found. Fun fact, it's frozen, so you might think, oh, it's supposed to be in the winter, but no. Hail generally forms, and the biggest hail is found in the summertime because heat brings energy to thunderstorms, and that's exactly what we'll be seeing this afternoon. A good amount of energy across parts of the United States, although most of us today are actually going to be in the clear when it comes to that severe weather threat. Places across the East Coast that dealt with very heavy rainfall. It's out of our hair. That stationary front has pushed over the ocean, but it's the West Coast of the United States that's not necessarily so lucky. They're going to be dealing with more widespread shower and thunderstorm activity, especially over near the Rockies and the northern Great Plains. So let's take a closer look at that because we are going to continue to see that chance for severe weather over the next 24 hours. Places like Arizona going to be dealing with the monsoon. That's normal for them this time of year, but they'll also be dealing with quite a lot of rain and severe thunderstorm activity over near Colorado, where that video was from earlier today. Might be seeing a little bit more hail and potentially some damaging wind gusts this afternoon. Damaging wind threat, yes, it's over Colorado. It's also up near Montana, where there's also the chance for hail. There's a good amount of severe weather on the way this afternoon. That's just something that we'll have to keep our eyes on over the next 24 hours, Reed.
All right, thank you so much, Zoe. All right, when we come back, we're focusing on the Democratic National Convention and the question, why is candidate Kamala Harris in another state for today's events? We'll go live to Weijia Jiang with CBS News here in just a minute. All right, today is day 2 of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. The theme, a bold vision for America's future. This morning, DNC leaders gave us a little bit of a preview of what we can expect tonight.
What you're going to see tonight is the broad, diverse, deep coalition of support for President Biden and the Harris-Walz ticket, including, of course, Chicago's own President and Mrs. Obama. We'll also hear from some other key leaders, including Leader Schumer, our incredible hosts here in Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker and Senator Tammy Duckworth, Senator Bernie Sanders, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, Mayor Giles of Mesa, Arizona, and, of course, the person who knows the Vice President best, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, will be able to speak to the strength and the leadership that she will bring to her presidency. And we're very excited for everyone to see our celebratory roll call, which will be held tonight and will be rooted in some of the most beloved traditions of our roll call, giving every state a chance and territory a chance to shine, while also introducing a number of new, innovative, exciting elements that will harness and display the energy and excitement behind the Harris-Walz ticket, which we will be displaying all week here in Chicago and then out on the road to victory in November.
All right, so with all that, Democrats hope to continue the excitement from day one, which featured a fiery and emotional speech from President Biden and a surprise stage experience from Vice President Kamala Harris. But today, while speakers energize those crowds at the DNC, candidate Kamala Harris and her VP pick, Tim Walz, will take their arguments 90 miles up the road to voters in Wisconsin. The venue is the exact same one where Republicans held their convention last month. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us live from Milwaukee on the stream today. Weijia, that's a big arena to fill. Can we read into this some strategy as well that the Harris team wants to show the nation they can actually bring the energy to that same arena that Republicans held their convention in?
Reed, I think it says much more about what Wisconsin means to both of these candidates and how critical it is. Of course, as you mentioned, the former president held the RNC here. That's where he was formally nominated to become the Republican nominee. And now, tonight, Harris will be here to really tell voters in this state that she is in it to win it for them. And it really is such a critical piece of what historically has been known as the blue wall to really help push Democrats to the White House. Now, Biden won back in 2020 by just about 20,000 votes. And back in 2016, Trump won by about the same margin. So, Reed, you can tell how close it is going to be. And that's why she is coming here. Of course, that you could call it trolling. Perhaps some people interpret it that way. But the truth is, that's the convention center here in Milwaukee, a massive city in this state. So it makes sense that it will be held here. And as you mentioned, when she makes remarks, they will be live streamed to the DNC in Chicago. And they're really hoping to capture the energy of these two rooms together tonight.
That stream, jumping the lake, combining those two communities. Weijia Jiang, thank you so much. All right, CBS News 24/7, watching voters from many parts of the national map as they head to the polls. We're talking about primary elections today as well. That's also happening on this busy day. So those of you in Alaska, Florida, and Wyoming making your voices heard, several key races there to talk about. And CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian live on the stream on primary day. Okay, Nicole, we're talking about Alaska and Wyoming, but let's start with Florida there. What's at stake in the very key state of Florida?
Well, there's quite a bit at stake. Obviously, there are a number of down ballot races that we are watching, most notably a House race involving Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz and his challenger Aaron Dimmick. This one is significant because, as you may recall, Congressman Gaetz led the charge against former Speaker Kevin McCarthy last fall, ultimately resulting in his historic ouster. And so McCarthy and groups aligned with McCarthy have kind of quietly backed some of these challengers to these GOP incumbents who ousted the former speaker last fall. So Matt Gaetz, of course, being the ringleader of that effort, we have certainly seen a pretty intense fight between him and his challenger Aaron Dimmick, although at this point it seems that Gaetz is poised to win again in this primary battle, but certainly it has been a very contentious fight. And of course, the other race we're watching in Florida is the Senate race. Of course, this will ultimately decide who will face off this fall. Right now, you have incumbent Senator Rick Scott, the former governor, who will likely face off against Debbie Mercalso-Powell, who is likely the Democratic challenger, although she is trying to knock off a couple of opponents today to solidify that nomination.
So much to keep in touch with, Nicole. I want to ask you about New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. He appealed his case this morning. So what's next for him?
Well, today is actually the day that he is resigning, or that his resignation becomes effective. So we know that New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has officially named his former aide, George Helmy, to take over in terms of the seat. There is obviously going to be an election this fall. There are candidates who are already running in that race, including Congressman Andy Kim. So Helmy, for the most part, will be a placeholder until this fall's election, but certainly this does mark the end of a decades-long political career for Senator Bob Menendez. Obviously, he still faces some legal troubles ahead following his conviction, and that his sentencing is slated for later this fall. So that is in part why we may have seen this filing from him this week, seeking to overturn those guilty verdicts in order to try to potentially getting out of being sentenced for potentially many years, depending on what jury returns.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian, thank you so much for streaming with us today. All right, so let's jump the map and show you this video coming to us as California really sharpens the sword against wildfires that have plagued that state. Firefighters in Orange County here expanding their aerial fleet with new helicopters. These are called Firehawks, and we often show you these monsters in the sky fighting fires. They're able to dump a lot of water after they pull it up through those hoses. And hose is an oversimplification, right? But they are able to drop it on the fires and save taxpayers a lot of money and insurance companies a lot of losses. They're pricey, though. There is a handoff, a trade-off there. $60 million to put these helicopters in the sky. But we did want to show you shiny new red helicopters down there at Orange County to fight fires. Zoe, it's just a necessity, especially in California.
Yes, especially in California, where they're dealing with very dry and hot conditions, but they're going to get a break from the heat, which is really great news. However, not everybody is going to be in that same boat. It's Texas that all eyes are going to be on, and they have actually, I would say, about 2 bullseyes that are directly over places in the central parts of Texas. Austin and Dallas both going to be dealing with near to record-breaking heat all across the area. So that's something that we're going to keep our eyes on. The record-breaking heat. Austin, Texas could get up to 106, 107, which would break the record that they already broke last year at this time. Dallas likely going to get up to 102, 104 in Houston, where there isn't that heat, excessive heat warning, but still a heat advisory in place. We're also keeping our eyes on Phoenix, where they're going to be seeing 112-degree high temperatures today. Hooey, it's not record-breaking, but it's definitely hot for them. Luckily, cool down is on the way for parts of Phoenix by tomorrow. For the rest of Texas, though, there is going to be quite a lot of heat. Heat-related illness is going to be a major issue as we step out over the next 24, 48, 72 hours. But check out Phoenix. They're not going to be dealing with nearly as much of the heat by just 24 hours from now, as they're going to be looking at a lot of monsoon rainfall that should be cooling them down, while Texas, that still is looking at that bullseye, where we are going to be seeing the risk for heat-related illness pretty high through Thursday. A cool down will arrive for even them on Friday, bringing everybody more comfortable heat, but it's something that we're going to keep our eyes on really throughout the rest of the week. Reed, the heat is definitely going to be on for them.
All right. Thank you so much, Zoe. Hey, when we come back, we told you we would turn that sound around. J.D. Vance, candidate for vice president, talking to voters in Wisconsin. You'll hear that in just a moment on the stream. All right, moments ago, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance spoke at a campaign event in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He really is trying to draw a line, highlighting differences between Harris and Donald Trump on their crime and safety policies. We wanted to let you hear what he had to say.
What we have in Kamala Harris is a person who has said that she wants to defund the police. Do we want to defund the police out there? This is a person who wants to change the laws around violent criminals so that people who commit sex crimes with minors would not be categorized as violent offenders. Do we think that's a good idea? No, absolutely not. It's not a good idea. Now, by contrast, we have President Donald J. Trump, who supported police, who backed the blue, and who made it easier for police to do their jobs. And remember, this is not just about making it easy on our police. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that when we make it easy on police, we make it so that every child in America has access to a basic right, which is public safety in their neighborhoods.
So counter-programming, counter-narrative on day 2 of the DNC there from the candidate for Vice President, J.D. Vance. Now, speaking of public safety, we have breaking news out of the state of Georgia. Word a deputy has been shot and rushed to this hospital we're about to show you in Atlanta. That is where our live cameras are right now. So here's the backstory. That deputy took that bullet while executing a search warrant at a home in Carroll County, west of Atlanta this morning. The gunman dead, the deputy fighting for their life inside this hospital, critical condition. Again, breaking news. As we talk about public safety, a deputy shot in Georgia. We'll continue asking questions and watching this story. We'll update you as we get more information. We've got our hands on the final report out of Maine on that state's deadliest mass shooting. Here's your headline. Both the Army Reserves and local police missed out on chances to stop a gunman having a psychiatric crisis. The backstory, October 25th last year, Army Reservist Robert Card killed 18 and injured 13 others in Lewiston, Maine. It's about 40 miles north of Portland. Families of the victims listening to the findings in this report, but getting no peace knowing this tragedy likely could have been stopped. Listen.
First, the Commission affirms what it laid out in its interim report issued last March. The Saginaw County Sheriff's Office had sufficient probable cause to take Card into protective custody under Maine's yellow flag law and to initiate a petition to confiscate any firearms he possessed or over which he had control. Second, the Commission finds that the leaders of his Army Reserve unit failed to exercise their authority over him and to undertake necessary steps to reduce the threat he posed to the public. Finally, the challenges faced by law enforcement in responding to the shootings were unprecedented in Maine. While many demonstrated bravery and professionalism in the face of danger, the first hours after the shootings were at times utter chaos, as hundreds of law enforcement officers poured into Lewiston and were dispatched or self-dispatched to numerous scenes throughout the area.
Victims' families hearing that, calling for stronger enforcement of the state's yellow flag laws. All right, new, it is confirmed. Iran is trying to influence the 2024 presidential election. U.S. officials sounding the alarm. Iran is behind the hack of former President Donald Trump's campaign and is also targeting the Harris-Walz campaign. Iran denies this, as both campaigns have been told by election officials to be on guard. More problems for independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is in court today once again, fighting to keep his name, this time on the ballot in Pennsylvania. Democratic challengers want Kennedy off that ballot. They say he used the wrong address on his candidacy paperwork and therefore he should be disqualified. Well, Kennedy's campaign has dismissed this legal challenge. They use the word frivolous. To Italy now. Rescue crews racing against time, searching for more survivors from a luxury yacht hit by an unexpected storm off the coast of Sicily on Monday. Nearly 24 people on that yacht when the storm struck, killing at least one. So far, 15 rescued from the waters, but many more, including Americans, are missing. CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay reports among the missing, a tech billionaire known as Britain's Bill Gates.
A disaster in paradise. It was sunrise in the Mediterranean, just a half mile off the coast of Sicily, when a ferocious storm Monday brought down the 184-foot super yacht named the Bayesian. The 6-suite luxury sailboat dropped anchor with 22 people on board, 10 crew and 12 passengers, according to the Italian Coast Guard. What they didn't know was lurking, a freak storm with waterspouts, tornadoes on the high seas, according to eyewitnesses. Rushing to the rescue was Captain Karsten Borner of a ship anchored nearby.
And after the storm was over, we noticed that the ship behind us was gone. And then we saw a red flare. Yeah. So my first mate and I went to the position.
They found 15 survivors on a life raft, including a 1-year-old girl in good condition, says her doctor. One body has been recovered. 6 people remain unaccounted for. including software magnate Mike Lynch, once described as Britain's Bill Gates, acquitted earlier this year of fraud charges in America. His daughter Hannah also among the missing, along with Lynch's American lawyer Chris Morvillo, a former assistant district attorney in New York, and his wife, and banker Jonathan Bloomer, chairman of Morgan Stanley International. This fisherman says he arrived shortly after their ship sank. But we only found cushions and debris, he laments. Now divers, helicopters, and speedboats continue to search for the missing, as well as for answers as to how a state-of-the-art super yacht could disappear in a flash.
Police divers have been trying to access the hull of that super yacht. It's feared that's where the missing were trapped when that ship sank. However, accessing the area has proven difficult, with all of the luggage and the furniture blocking the way. Chris Lipsey, CBS News, Rome.
All right, Chris, thanks. So we're also watching our video monitors that take us now to the state of Vermont, where business owners at tourist destinations picking up the pieces after 2 bouts of flooding in the month of July. The businesses along these waterways really depend on tourism linked to a lot of trails in the area. The floods just washed those trails away. In fact, here's business owner Burton talking about what those floods do to his way of earning a living.
We were having a really good summer, and when the trails closed down, things came to a bit of a screeching halt. But it's kind of part of the game. I mean, part of the situation with us is everything we rely on is weather related, whether it be skiing and especially Kingdom Trails.
They also want tourists to know while some of these businesses are closed, others are open. Very much want you to come back. Zoe, severe weather still a threat in our country.
Unfortunately, we are looking at more severe weather potential as we step out today, but the places across the East Coast that were dealing with that stationary front that really brought a lot of rain, historic rainfall for places in Connecticut and New York City and also Vermont. We are now seeing that stationary front. It's departing. It's sitting along the Atlantic Ocean. So they're not going to have to deal with that anymore. But it's places across the West Coast that are going to be dealing with a bit more of that severe weather potential and a bit more rain thanks to the monsoon. So let's take a closer look at that because, yes, we are going to be dealing with an excessive rainfall outlook for places over Arizona. The places that are dealing with quite a lot of heat today are going to get a nice cool down by as soon as tomorrow thanks to the monsoon. But unfortunately, with the rain, with summertime comes strong thunderstorms, and that's what we're expecting down in southern Colorado, another area of thunderstorms developing up near Montana. The thunderstorms are likely going to include damaging wind gusts, likely going to be seeing upwards of 50 to 60 miles an hour down near Colorado and upwards of 60 to 70 miles an hour up near Montana. So those thunderstorms will develop later today and continue into the late night hours with about a 5% risk of large hail greater than an inch. So if we take a closer look at the storm system and the track of it, again, it will be arriving later tonight. It's reviewed around 8 p.m. where we are expecting more isolated thunderstorms to develop, but they are going to be strong. Even though they won't be widespread, not everybody is going to see heavy rainfall. Almost everybody is going to be dealing with at least some sort of gustier winds from the outflow boundaries from those thunderstorms. So it's something we're going to keep our eye on tonight, Reed. But again, it's not going to be anything too crazy or widespread. In fact, about 90% of the United States not going to have to deal with any sort of weather concern today.
After the summer we've had, we'll take not too crazy. That's it for us at CBS News 24/7. We thank you for watching. We leave you with pictures outside the arena, Democratic National Convention. Our teams continue covering that on the stream day in and day out through the week.